Drawn and Redrawn, The Making of India's Internal Boundaries. Hi, and welcome back to India State Stories. The final episode explores the legal and territorial unraveling of the empire. From the drafting of the Indian Independence Bill to the appointment of Radcliffe Boundary Commissions, we examine the formal partition of India and the dissolution of the British paramountcy, which left states to decide between joining India or Pakistan or staying independent. More details are in the show notes below, and let's dive into the conversation.
Today, we're driving into a really intense period, one of the most compressed, high-stakes moments, in modern history. We're talking about the events leading up to India's independence and, of course, the incredibly complex and painful partition in 1947. Our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to really get under the hood, understand the mechanics, the sheer administrative gymnastics needed to pull this off so quickly. We're drawing on a lot of sources, which we'll use as our guide. So the big question we're trying to unpack is, how on earth did two independent nations, India and Pakistan, emerge so rapidly from British rule? What were the actual tangible decisions and processes involved?
It really is remarkable, the speed of it all. And what's fascinating, looking at the sources, is just how unprecedented this whole transfer of power was. Yeah. It wasn't, a slow handover. It was sudden, a seismic shift that literally reshaped the subcontinent in, weeks. So this deep dive will go beyond just the headlines and dates. We'll focus on the specific blueprints, the reluctant compromises, and those key decisions made under just extraordinary pressure.
And when you say weeks, you really mean it. I mean, the blueprint for all this change, it came out on June 3rd, 1947. The Menin Mountbatten Plan. This was the framework, right? The core strategy for partition, for the power transfer. It laid out how different provinces would actually decide their future. So for places like Punjab and Bengal, their assemblies would vote on being partitioned. Mm-hmm. Sindh, its assembly would decide. Mm-hmm. Then NWFP, the Northwest Frontier Province, and Sylhet in Assam, they had referendums.
Right, different mechanisms.
And the plan also called for setting up a boundary commission straight away, didn't it?
Right.
To draw those borders, especially for Punjab and Bengal, which were incredibly contentious. The goal, two new dominions, India and Pakistan, basically self-governing states within the Commonwealth, each with its own constituent assembly to write a new constitution. Yeah. But here's the bit that just blows my mind. The target date for independence was August 15th, 1947.
Yeah.
That's barely 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So what were the immediate, the almost impossible implications of that kind of timeline?
Well, that tight timeline, as the sources really emphasize, it just forced radical compromises. And often it led to, hurried decisions, imperfect ones with huge long-term consequences. The June 3rd plan, essentially, it marked the formal giving up on a united India. It was a reluctant sort of concession to the demand for Pakistan. And the results from the provinces came in fast, pushing things towards division. In Bengal, the assembly voted for Pakistan, but then, and this is crucial, the members from non-Muslim majority areas voted separately to partition the province and join India.
Oh.
Same painful pattern in Punjab. Assembly voted for Pakistan, but then the Hindu and Sikh majority areas voted for partition to join India. Sindh, a narrow vote for Pakistan. Baluchistan, unanimous for Pakistan. NWFP, there was significant opposition. Abdul Ghaffar Khan's supporters boycotted the referendum, but the majority still voted for Pakistan.
Right.
And Sylhet's referendum also went pro-Pakistan, so it merged with East Bengal. It's worth noting, too, ideas like an independent Pathanistan, they were just dismissed by the British, by the Muslim League. This whole rapid process, it was driven by this overwhelming urgency, sometimes called mutual exhaustion, Mm-hmm. Everyone just wanted it done, which led to this provisional acceptance of arrangements that, let's be honest, nobody was really happy with.
Okay, so the political will, or maybe exhaustion, was there, but the clock was just ticking like mad. The British government now had to turn this agreement into actual law and do it incredibly fast. Let's unpack the Indian Independence Bill itself. Only 20 clauses, apparently, which seems tiny for something so huge. Dismantling an empire, creating two nations.
Mm-hmm. Remarkably concise.
But what's really key, maybe surprising, is how collaborative it was, to a point. British officials worked with Congress and Muslim League representatives, taking their comments on board.
Yeah, incorporating feedback.
Can you imagine those talks?
Yeah.
Anyway, introduced July 4th, 1947, passed within 2 weeks, royal assent July 18th. That's legislative warp speed, isn't it?
Absolutely. Unheard of for something of this magnitude.
And its immediate effect was massive. Dissolved the old central legislature, empowered the new Dominion constituent assemblies to act as legislatures, and let both new countries run temporarily under a modified version of the old 1935 Government of India Act until they wrote their own constitutions.
And that brings up a really critical point about leadership. During that chaotic transition, the original idea, funny enough, was for one common governor general for both India and Pakistan. For some continuity, some stability.
Right.
Nehru, who was about to be India's first PM, he invited Mountbatten to stay on as India's governor general. But Jinnah, who'd become Pakistan's first governor general, made a really pivotal decision. He told Mountbatten he'd serve in that role for Pakistan himself, even though he had earlier sort of backed the idea of a common figure.
Interesting.
And that split, well, it had big implications, symbolic and practical, right from day one. Two distinct leadership centers. Then there was the challenge of the interim government, that mix of Congress and Muslim League people. Once partition was set, Congress basically said, look, the Muslim League shouldn't be part of a joint cabinet anymore.
Makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah, but to stop everything grinding to a halt, Mountbatten came up with this clever workaround. Congress ministers would handle affairs for future India, Muslim League ministers for future Pakistan, joint issues still discussed under the Governor General. So effectively, you had two provisional governments running side by side, even before Independence Day. Just a pragmatic way to keep things moving.
Okay, so the laws passed, the leadership structure sort of is figured out. But passing a bill is one thing. The really massive job was the practical stuff, the gritty details. How do you actually divide up an entire government, civil services, military, finances, in weeks? Let's get into what that meant on the ground. Administrative separation, there was a partition council, right? Supported by 10 expert committees.
Yes, specialized committees.
And these poor folks had to divide everything, the bureaucracy, the money, foreign relations stuff, even just government records. Boxes and boxes of paper. There was also an arbitral tribunal, Sir Patrick Spens, for disputes over assets and services. But here's a fascinating bit from the sources. Apparently, key officials like H.M. Patel and Chaudhry Muhammad Ali did so much groundwork so efficiently.
They were crucial.
And Mountbatten smoothed over so many disputes informally that the official tribunal barely had anything left to do.
Yeah, it highlights that surprising level of pragmatism, doesn't it? Collaboration, even amidst all the political fighting. They just had to make it work.
Exactly. Then, the huge, incredibly sensitive task, dividing the Indian armed forces. The decision was clear. Each dominion gets its own military from August 15th. Initially, the idea was to divide based on geography, citizenship, but it very quickly became communal, perhaps inevitably.
Yes, that shift was quite rapid.
Non-Muslim majority units to India, Muslim majority units to Pakistan.
And dividing the military, well, that was just fraught with complexity and tension. Field Marshal Auchinleck was made Supreme Commander under a Joint Defense Council. His job was to oversee this division, supposed to last until April 48. But what's really telling here is how mutual distrust, political tensions just escalated so fast that Auchinleck's command was actually abolished prematurely by November 1947.
Wow, that's it.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes about how deep the fissures were becoming between the two new nations right from the start. European officers, civil and military, they were in a unique spot. They got offered pretty generous compensation packages if they wanted to leave because of the power transfer, and many did. They opted for early retirement rather than stay on.
Can't blame them, maybe.
Perhaps not. Indian officers, though, were mostly kept on under their existing terms unless they had specific hardship cases. And notably, the British government picked up the whole tab for compensating these departing Europeans and eligible Indians. This whole setup just underlined the complete sovereignty granted by the Independence Act. Clause 6 was key there. It explicitly said neither dominion was subordinate to the British Parliament. They could change or repeal any British law.
Total independence.
Exactly, emphasizing that this was complete, irreversible independence for both India and Pakistan.
Which brings us, I guess, to the most physical and definitely the most contentious part of partition, the actual line on the map. This unenviable job fell to Sir Cyril Radcliffe, a British lawyer, flown in just for this, and the Boundary Commissions for Punjab and Bengal. The pressure must have been immense. Limited time, incredibly deep political arguments from all sides. Think about it. A guy who'd never been to India before, tasked with drawing lines that would decide the fate of millions. He even later said he did it with a bad conscience.
Yeah, an almost impossible position.
And here's where it gets really jarring. The Congress and Muslim League members on the commissions, they couldn't agree on the boundaries at all.
Deadlock.
So Radcliffe was left to make a unilateral award. his decision. And that controversial Radcliffe Award, it wasn't even released until August 17th, 2 days after independence.
Chaos ensued.
In Bengal, the result was this stark difference. West Bengal, going to India, got much less land population, just over a third, compared to East Bengal for Pakistan. Apparently, this was a deliberate, though controversial, try at concentrating populations by religion, aiming for demographic symmetry. But nobody was happy.
No, deep dissatisfaction on both sides.
And in Punjab, a region that had been unified for so long, is sliced up. Lahore, huge cultural center, went to Pakistan. Gurdaspur, Amritsar, strategically vital, went to India. Predictably, deep dissatisfaction everywhere, but they accepted it, provisionally.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, I mean, the Radcliffe Award, it looked like a technical job drawing lines, but it became the source of lasting grievance, didn't it? And just immense human displacement. These decisions, like you said, base largely on the 1941 census data mapping religious majorities. Just for context, undivided British Punjab, that was a huge area, over 28 million people just in the British-ruled parts.
Oh.
After partition, India got less than 40% of the total undivided Punjab area. And if you just look at the British-administered bit, the share India got East Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, was roughly half of what the British had ruled directly.
Right, okay.
The map we're looking at really shows those Muslim and non-Muslim majorities in the Punjab districts from 41. You can see the demographic tangle they were dealing with. It just underlines again that partition, even though accepted, was a reluctant compromise. Definitely not a consensus. There was maybe this faint, perhaps naive hope floating around that, future talks might fix the leftover problems.
I hope that didn't really pan out.
No, not really. That hope, as we know, largely went unfulfilled.
What an absolutely incredible and often, agonizing journey through such a condensed, complex few months of history. From that initial blueprint, the Men in Mountbatten Plan, to the lightning-fast Independence Bill. Then the brutal task of administratively splitting a subcontinent, and finally the literal drawing of lines by Radcliffe. All in just months.
Astonishing speed.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you, our listener, a clearer look at the intricate mechanics behind this truly monumental shift. The key takeaway, maybe, isn't just the formal creation of two sovereign states, but the sheer speed, the profound compromises involved, leaving this legacy of both independence and, let's face it, immense human cost.
And this does raise an important question, doesn't it? Something for you to think about beyond just the maps and the dates. What were the long-term human political consequences of these incredibly rapid, complex divisions? How do countries actually go about rebuilding identities, building governance structures basically from scratch, like India and Pakistan had to? And maybe what can we learn from those foundational decisions back in 1947 about nation building today, especially when dealing with what seemed like impossible deadlines and really deep disagreements? The answers, well, they continue to echo through history. It makes this whole period still so relevant and definitely worth understanding more deeply.